Hello, everyone. I wanted my talk to be sort of part testimony and also sharing a bit of the word, because I've been in Leeds for 3 years now, and at the beginning it felt a little bit like that painting from 1893, if I'm a historian, I'm not, is about existential angst. So what you have there is a fairly troubled person against an impressionist background. But that also represents me being here, because when I came, it was with work at the heart of it. I moved up from London, and I just found things tremendously difficult. I felt quite rudderless. I felt like I was detached from kind of my center, and things were really, really hard, and I felt really lonely. So what helped was building a bigger sense of community. That is a massive thing, and it's something I bang on about. And it is something that is in this verse in Ecclesiastes, which reads, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up." So for me, the end part of that is really uplifting, to use a term, because it gets to the heart of what I realized, which is having people around me who could support me, who could listen to me and lend an ear really, really mattered and really helped. And I wanted to get into 3 communities I'm a part of and I really value being a part of, and why they matter, and kind of ground myself in how they have helped me, and obviously share bits and pieces along the line. So the first community is the obvious one. We'll stay here for now on this slide. It is church. It's where we are. It's this building. It is a wonderful place to be. I reconnected with my faith, I'd say, sort of in the first year I was coming to church, and then the second year in Leeds, still a picture of existential angst. I remember walking in on a Sunday where I was covering riots. So I'm a reporter, for people who don't know. And I remember the summer, the year before last, and it was really, really hot, to use a word, in terms of kind of the situation on the streets. I remember being really tired and a lot of really awful things happening, and always being there. I remember walking into church and being prayed for by a couple. And every time I remember that, I get quite emotional, because what it meant was kind of comfort, peace, grounding, and centering, which mattered a lot. So this is a great place for that. Church is a community for prayer and for grounding. And I remember that particularly because that day I went to a riot, and a few planks flew over my head that might have landed on my head, and I thought, that's that prayer. But then also, I really, really enjoy being part of a small group, and I mean, Abby's small group, quick shout out to her. And what I really, really like is that she and the group create a space for reflection. And that's another reason that the church community is so valuable and vital. It's a chance also to obviously share what we've been going through in the week, but then also to just sit, and that silence, there's so much power in that. We all support each other, and I'm so grateful for the prayers that have been said in small group for me and my family. And I think if you're not part of one, that's another chance to further ingrain yourself in the church community. But we exist in a big, wide world, and we're not in church all the time. So I wanted to quickly touch on 2 other communities I'm a part of that matter a lot to me. The first one is this. It is a Monday night at my running club. You cannot see me in that picture, obviously. If I'm using a biblical joke, that is the crowd of witnesses from Hebrews. Sorry, I had to. But for me, running, obviously there's the sense of accomplishment and pushing yourself, and that Proverbs verse, iron sharpens iron. Fine, I wanted to get faster and meet people. That was great. But what it actually became was a chance for me to kind of show up for other people and have them show up for me. And obviously not everyone shares the same belief systems, the same faiths, but there are people who have shared their faiths with me, and I have felt so blessed by that. It's opened my eyes. But there are people in that group as well who I asked to come to the cinema with. There are people who have helped me move through injuries as well. So in your search for community, it doesn't have to be running with, I don't know how many odd people on a Monday. It could be something quieter. It could be something more sedate and sedentary. It doesn't matter. I think a thing I have learned is that community comes in forms like this as well, being pushed, being supported, and being strengthened. And then my sort of last point, and the last community I'm a part of, is work. So that is a few months ago in a far sunnier climate, which upsets me a lot. it's in Myanmar, and the lady taking the picture is Rachel, the producer, and the man who's having a better time than me is Ozor, who was like the fixer who helped us on the ground in a country called Myanmar. Difficult country to report in, it's not a free state. And he took us around the country and he looked after us, translated all the interviews at great personal risk. But for me, every time I go into work, whether it's in the north of England where I usually work, or in places like this, I realize that is my community. That to me is a family. And obviously there are so many scriptures that touch on trying to exemplify the love and the word of God. And I really believe in bringing love to the workplace. That's a place where you're with people who are very different to you, with different lived experiences in different countries. And my Lord, it can be a test. Sometimes the pressure I'm under makes me want to behave in ways I don't want to. And I always see it as a kind of like a strengthening, a kind of ability to persevere when I'm in a different time zone, in a different place, doing my job. I'm like, what do I lean on? Because sometimes you're not going to outwardly go and say, I read this verse in the Bible at work. You're not going to do that. But what you are going to do is show up as a version of yourself which is based on the grounding you have here. So I think that's important. And I also think one other thing about your work communities or your communities you're in where you have to, I suppose, contribute is integrity really matters. I think that having a why and conducting yourself in the right way and trying to drive your team to good work or be driven to good work is also important. And a lot of it stems from my first slide and my first sort of thought, which was that community is important as grounding. Being here is important as grounding. So the things I'd encourage as we go back to the Ecclesiastes verse, please, is that you are curious about the communities you're in, that you keep showing up even when it feels like it might be hard, and try to keep showing up with the grounding that you have, which for many of you is here, because it matters. And I have found great comfort in community, which is why I wanted to share a word on that, and I hope it's been helpful.